Hello everyone, hope you guys are having a nice day. This video is going to be a bit different from most of my other videos as it's not about Warframe, instead this is episode 1 of a new series I like to call Fortnite Physics. In this set of videos I plan to go over different mechanics in Fortnite and explain the mathematics behind those mechanics. Now I decided to make this series after noticing a real lack of how should I say, educational content regarding Fortnite on YouTube. Yeah, so this being episode 1, I've decided to start with the basics and create some constants of measure that you can use not only to measure different objects and distances in the game, but also improve your gameplay. For example, if you know how long it takes to run across each square on the map, you can better anticipate when to leave for the next circle and avoid taking damage in the storm. Now, you're probably wondering to yourself, hey, how can I accurately measure different distances in game? Well, I'm glad you asked. Just bear with me for a second and imagine. If we knew the size of walls or stairs or just different things we build in the game, then we could in theory have a portable in-game ruler almost. Like if we wanted to know how big Loot Lake was, all we would have to do is build across and multiply how long each platform was by the total number of platforms it took to cross the lake. And then we would have our answer. Here comes the tricky part though. How do we accurately measure the size of things we build in-game? We already know that Fortnite has an in-game measuring system, as when you snipe a player or down someone from a far distance, it will tell you how far away they were in meters. Now, we could try and snipe someone, use that loot that they drop as a reference point to where they died, and build across to that point. Then divide the total number of platforms it took you to build there by the distance in meters at which they were sniped at to get the length of each platform. There are a couple of problems with this method though, as it relies on you killing someone and then having enough materials to build all the way to where they died. And then you also have to hope that no one else shoots you in the process. Plus, unless they are either directly north, south, east, or west of you, you won't be able to build a direct straight path to them, which will alter the distance you travel, and that's what you're using to calculate the platform length. In addition to this, the person you shoot will most likely not be at the same elevation, further skewing the data. Luckily, there is another way to accurately calculate distance in Fortnite. At the end of a match, you can view your match stats. This will tell you all sort of things like how many materials you collected, the number of headshots you got, but most importantly for our purposes, how far you've traveled. Now, depending on how far you get in the game, it will tell you your distance traveled in either kilometers, meters, or even centimeters if you hardly move at all. With this tool at our disposal, all we have to do now is devise a plan to measure the size of objects we build in the game accurately. And to do this, I brought along two friends. Essentially, we would drop into areas where there weren't that many players, but there were tons of resources. Places like Wailing Woods or Moisty Mire. The other people helping me test would drop down first and collect the materials as fast as they could, building a stairway above environmental obstructions like trees and hills. This way we wouldn't have to deal with any variability in the elevation. My job is essentially just to drop down right at the very edge of the platform where it changes from stairs into platforms and to not move at all. At which point my teammates will build a straight line of platforms as long as we can. I run along these platforms recording exactly how many we lay down, making sure to run in as straight a line as possible. Then I just let the storm kill me after I reach the very last platform. Easy in theory, but much harder to do in practice, as you have to contend with other players trying to kill you, as everyone in this game seems to be hell-bent on destroying literally anything you build. It's also important to note that the game does not start counting how far you travel until your feet touch the ground after dropping from the bus, otherwise this would be even more difficult to do. Anyways, I ran this over 5 trials and got an average length of each platform anywhere from 5.105 meters to 5.120 meters, with the average being about 5.108 meters. I was pretty happy with these results as all of our tests were within 1/100th of a meter of each other, despite us using different numbers of platforms for every test and also using different locations. I also left out the runs where our platform was destroyed just to make sure none of the data was skewed. I'm going to round up and call it 5.11 meters for each platform, as I don't feel confident of the accuracy in the thousands place. But since we were still able to measure the accuracy down to the centimeter, I guess I don't have too much to complain about. So now that we have the in-game ruler I was talking about, I decided to go around and measure the sizes of some different landmarks and notable features in the game. Let's start with some silly stuff and then move into some distance relationships that I found to be really interesting. I'm sure that most of you watching this have already seen or at least heard of the llama by Junk Junction. He's about 6 stories tall up to the top of his head, or a full 7 stories tall if you include his ears. All you gotta do to find his height in meters is multiply the number of stairs you use to reach the top by 5.11, and you'll find that he's 35.8 meters tall, or about 117 feet. This is only 1.2 meters or 5 feet shorter than the tallest skyscraper in Tilted Towers. But anyways, on to the measurements that actually matter. My first order of business was measuring the distance from the lowest point at which you can build in the ocean to the very top of the skybox. Turns out it's exactly 50 stories from the bottom of the buildable zone to the very top, or about 255.5 meters. Now, this on its own isn't that interesting, however, after testing the distance of the squares that you see on your map, they also happen to be exactly 50 blocks wide. This gives a pretty good representation of the size of the buildable area. Imagine flipping one of those squares onto a z-axis, that's the exact distance between the skybox and the ocean. Not only did I measure the size of these square blocks on the map, I also used them to calculate how long it takes a player to cross one of these blocks on the map. It took exactly 54 seconds for me to run across one side of the square to the other. This means that my character was running at a rate of 4.73 meters per second or 10.58 miles per hour. Keep in mind though that it will take you longer to cross each square, as variation in the terrain will increase your distance traveled and the angle at which you enter the square will also vary the rate at which you can cross it. Anyways guys, I hope you found this video helpful. If it does well, I plan on making more videos like this in the future. If you've got suggestions on how I can improve, please leave those suggestions in the comments below. Or if you just want to talk or play with me on Fortnite, please feel free to join my Discord, as I'm always looking for people to help me test stuff and squad with. And last but not least, I'd like to thank you for watching the video, and I hope to see you in the next one.